Jess ran into a bit of a crunch, so she's asked if I can just step in and do a step in for her. So I've done two prezos today. Hopefully you don't get bored of hearing my voice all the time, but here we go. Morning, everybody, and welcome to our How to Take Over the World session for, geez, I got the date. Yeah, no, it's like 25th of February, 2022. It's been a busy week, and hopefully you enjoy the presentations that we've got put together today. As a starting point, as always, just a reminder of our purpose. So we assist entrepreneurs with access to finance and access to markets, and we enjoy working with projects that have some form of social impact as well. So quite excited about some of the stuff we're working on. Just a quick run through of the things that we have succeeded with this week. Oh no, wait, before we start, tune to get you going, and this one was quite fun. So anyone, I don't know how many of you know the new radicals, you get what you give, but this is kind of my personal anthem. But I don't know how many of you, intercausal might be her generation. But fun fact about this, I actually didn't know this. So Greg Alexander was the front man for this, and he hated being a one-hit wonder. He went on to go and write songs for Santana, Michelle Branch. So if you remember Michelle Branch, Ronan Keating, and Enrique Iglesias. So, you know, there's quite a big jump from punk rock to Michelle Branch. But anyway, fun fact, he just hated the song so much that he ended up going completely the opposite direction. So there's a fun fact for this Friday. In terms of what are we working on this week, Intercausal got coverage for the team from Uzenzele. So they were working on coverage post the budget. This is just a screen grab from stuff that went into Biz Community. And I think there's some other coverage that's coming up today as well around that project. So anybody who's looking for PR and comms advice, they're welcome to reach out to us. We're happy to work at it as part of the strategy. Em launched her Women in Business podcast, and we're just saying it's already achieved over 50 odd views with no real promotional marketing beyond just our basic social channels. So nice to see this is finally out the door. And it's first one that she interviewed was Soraya Williams, who is from Design 26, which is a not-for-profit, and well, I think is a not-for-profit and for-profit element to it, but effectively it was to try and develop the textile industry locally, so social entrepreneurship. Kelsey and Simon did quite an enjoyable podcast this week looking at the reasons why you should enter into financial education for your staff. And you can go and find that online. It's on our social channels. But for those who know Simon, they'll know that he's very practical. So, I mean, this time they were talking about things like whether you really need to own a new car, property market, and kind of where people go wrong when it's implementing financial education solutions. So you're welcome to have a look at that. It's on our social channels, and you can, and it really was just quite a, fun interview. We rolled out a hackathon in Eastern and Southern Cape, 300 youth. It was the biggest project that we've worked on in that region, thanks to Sam and then Cam and Jess were also there helping put together swag bags at the last minute. Those 300 youth have been involved in they're effectively getting digital training. It was a hackathon where they were presenting some ideas and solutions. But just one of the interesting facts. So, I mean, obviously, one of the nice things about the social impact related to this particular project is the ability to move money into underprivileged communities and create jobs where they are needed. And, if you take 300 youth and they're earning 4,000 Rand a month, it means that every month 1.2 million Rand is going into the communities in the Southern and Eastern Cape, which means that you can obviously start to stimulate the local economy. So that's it was a lot of work, and it didn't all go off perfectly, but it was a great project, and there'll be some big social impact from that. Just some of the things we're watching this week. I think nobody can ignore the war in Ukraine at the moment. Some of that's quite spectacular. Oil price at over $100 a barrel, quite significant. So petrol prices will be going up. I will put out a notice to everybody, but obviously with petrol up, we'll try and make remote working a consideration again, so that we just keep an eye on the bottom line. Retail sector recovery, I just thought this was quite fun. Spend at restaurants was 45% higher year on year. Spas up 36% and cinemas up 228%. I didn't realize people actually still went to cinemas. Chocolatiers saw 62% increase in spend, while flowers and gifts accounted for 81 and 20% increases. So they came by F&B. And then the budget speech was it was actually quite a business friendly budget speech. And then the last one, I think there's been some high profile suicides, a lot related to mental health. As always, if you are struggling with anything, you're welcome to reach out to us. We do have some support resources in place to support around mental health, but also it's part of the offering from the DBT team. So please, if you are struggling with anything or it's becoming an issue for any of your clients, you're welcome to see how we can work together on that. So that's my starting point as to some of the things we're watching. And did I miss anything?
No, I think you covered everything and anything.
Fantastic. Hopefully you don't get tired of my voice, but it's only been 9 minutes, so hopefully we're still on track here. So my two presentations today, the first question that I've been asked by two different people this week is, how do I decide what to invest in? So then I said, okay, well, why should you invest? So basically your money is depreciating in value every year. It's decreasing by at least 7% a year, probably more in real terms. So if you think of it, and that's basically based on inflation. Reducing dependence on an employer. I think a lot of people, and particularly as you get older, become completely dependent on being employed. If you've got alternative sources of income, you're able to get out there and kind of hedge your bets a little bit. And then ultimately to buy you time. I mean, we've been talking quite a lot about salaries, and the reality is that there's an oversupply of labor, and salaries globally have been heading downward in real terms for better part of 30 years now. And that means that your time is being treated as worth less and less. And yet there's so many things that you want to do. So if you've got the option to go out there and make some investments, and hopefully some of them go up, you're ultimately being able to buy yourself some time. Just quickly jargon busting a few options that are out there. So there's shares. Those are things that where you buy pieces of a specific company. Unit trusts. So there you'll get a professional fund manager who will go and buy stuff on your behalf. So in other words, they study the shares and they try and buy it. Or build a portfolio for you. So exchange traded funds, these have become incredibly popular. So if you see all the advertising for Satrix, exchange traded funds are effectively low cost tracking tools that don't require any input from managers, and they basically just buy an index. And I mean, you can buy anything from Satrix 40 to the S&P 500 through to the cannabis index in the US. So exchange traded funds have become very popular in terms of low cost investing. Tax-free savings account. Every year you get 36,000 Rand that you can put into a tax-free savings account. You don't attract any tax when you sell on it. You've got a lifetime limit of 500,000. But basically with the tax-free savings account, it means that your money is wrapped up and protected from incurring any tax when you sell it. And there should be something to be part of your long-term financial planning. Property, you can buy either physical or listed property. Retirement annuities. Retirement annuities are basically things that you can tie up your money for long-term savings. In other words, they're basically there for you to retire on. When you commit to retirement annuity, you can't access it unless there's some very there's some very small case in which you can, but in reality, most time it's locked up until you reach your retirement age. So, for those of you, so for instance, people like me who are not very disciplined, it's always a good way to take money, hide it away from yourself and make sure that you can have a nice nest egg when you retire. They say only, I think 1 out of every 7 South Africans is actually able to retire because they haven't saved anything for retirement. You can invest in currencies or crypto. I'm not going to get too much into that. And then you can also it's also growing in popularity at the moment, is the sustainable and impact farming. So for instance, if you go and look at that Fed Group app, you can buy things like beehives, you can buy things like lettuce stacks, you can buy macadamia nuts, moringa trees, blueberries, and they actually generate a very good return. and you can do a bit of social and environmental good over that. So it's just some basic jargon busting for you guys to have a look at, and I'll answer any questions you have if you want at the end of this part of this presentation. Basically, what I said was I just used this as the most common tool, and for all the team members, you know that we try and top up your Easy Equities accounts from time to time. Easy Equities basically lets you buy all of these different asset classes from as little as 10 Rand a share if you want. But it basically means you can invest in everything from shares through to ETFs, crypto, and property. And I just wanted to, for the purposes of this, actually use Jonathan's account just so that you could see a little bit about how you could go and invest in big companies from very little. So in his South African account, he's got the JSE, Advotech, Anglo-American, First Rand, etc. In his US account, he's got Walt Disney, Monster, Alphabet, which is all Google. There's some Easy Equities in there. There's Yum Brand. So Sam's working on a project with Yum at the moment. And Electronic Arts, which is the gaming company. And then also, property is also becoming like a big challenge for guys and girls, particularly in the younger generation. It's getting harder and harder to get a bond and to break into the property market. So the guys from Easy Properties have created a way where you can go and buy shares in the different portfolios. So you can go and buy. So this is, again, I just grabbed Jonathan's portfolio, but the 7 on middle at the top is a development in Bryanston. He's got shares in Belito Groves, which is they're in Belito. It's like a flat complex. Black Brick and Block are both in Cape Town. Rockefeller's in Cape Town, the Polo Fields. If you guys have driven through Midrand, you'll see the Polo Fields there, and the Blader, which is where they've got the the man-made lagoon. So from as little as $50, you can buy a share in that, and I think most of these have already paid him some rental income this month. So it's a very cool way to start out from an investing perspective without having to borrow. It may not feel like a big investment, but at least it gets you a foot in the market to start with. I'm going to stop there for a moment. Any questions? So one of the questions
no questions, but if you see in the chat section, Intercausal has said that she just got dividends.
Yeah. So basically, dividends are share of profit. So your all those properties that Jonathan had over there. Let me just go back. The Polo Fields has paid out their profit, their dividends. So it's basically a composition of rental income and management. Belito paid out, and 7 on middle just paid out. So basically, he's earning rental income without actually having to physically get a bond and buy into all of those properties. So, and then dividends, when it comes to your shares, is basically your share of the profits each month, or well, technically every 6 months, which gets put consolidated, but it's your share of the company's profits. So if you own shares in First Rand, then you can go and get the dividend or the share of their profit. So that's what a dividend is. Another question that came through. Are there specific platforms, tools for that you can use for tax breaks on your savings? So, I mean, there's lots of, obviously I've mentioned the tax-free savings account. It's not so much a SARS tax break. So your biggest and most common tax break is from a retirement annuity. So if you have a retirement annuity, you can basically claim your contributions up to 27.5% of your salary back from SARS. So basically, South Africans have got like a really poor savings track record. So what the government has said is, if you put money away and you stick it into a retirement annuity, we will give you up to 27.5% of your salary as a rebate if you are contributing to a retirement annuity. And the theory is that if they kind of give you the break now, you won't become a burden on the state down the line. So, your retirement annuity is the most common one. You can buy it through a financial advisor. You can buy it through Easy Equities. The Outvest retirement annuity is actually regarded as one of the cheapest in the country at the moment. So it's a robo-advisor. I'll post it in the chat for you as well. We did some work with these guys when they were When they were launching, so I'm just going to post it over here quickly. Sam and I were involved with the launch there, but Outvest is basically a robo-advisor, so it doesn't use any people to make decision making. It just uses a whole lot of historical data to decide where to invest your retirement projects, or if you're saving for university or for children, saving for a holiday, it'll try and pick the best risk profile for you. But one of the things that's different about Outvest is that normally in your traditional kind of financial advisor driven models, they take a commission every year. It's about between 1.5% and 3%. So if it starts out and you've saved R1,000 a month for the first 12 months, that means you've got 12,000 Rand. They're taking between 1.5% and 3% of that 12,000 Rand every year. But the difference is that as the pool grows, they continue to take 1.5% to 3%. The difference with the Outvest one is that it's capped at, I think it's 4,500 Rand. So it doesn't grow, it hits a point where it doesn't become a case that the advisor is taking between 1.5% and 1.5% and 3% on, let's say you've got 10 million in your retirement savings. So that just gives you an idea. And then the other one is, thanks Anay. And then just from an education perspective, Just One Lap is also quite a useful resource that they're out there. And then Edward, I think, touched on it the other day. Easy Equities have also got a very cheap, a very well put together content platform for education. So they've got a number of resources there. Anybody else got any questions? Cool. Always nice when we have questions. Then my second one is, and this was my original presentation, but it's basically the importance of being deliberate. And this is something that I think we've been focusing a lot on. It's not always easy, but it is one of the things we're trying to work on. So what does it mean to be deliberate or intentional? Being intentional helps you become more present and achieve bigger and better goals in your business and life. When you're intentional, you bring a clear purpose, structure, and positive mindset to your day. And then I also posted in there, and make sure that you make your bed. For any of you who have watched the commencement speech for, I think it's the University of Texas, one of the guys who presents, it's like a very well-known speech. If you search for it, it'll come up. And he's an ex-Navy SEAL. And he talks about the kind of what are the things that they drum into you as a Navy SEAL. And one of the things that they always encourage or drive is that you have to make your bed every morning, and you've got to make it well. And the theory is that when you make your bed in the morning, one, you've achieved the first task for the day. So you've been deliberate about finishing something, but then you've also gone on to build if you have a really shitty day, you can come back in the evening and plop down in a bed that's made. And there's a difference psychologically between getting into a bed that's made and getting into a bed that's unmade. And the theory is that you actually you feel like you've achieved something, and what you've achieved has actually improved your lifestyle. So just you can go and search for it. If anyone's got it on hand, they can also go and pull it. Thanks. I think, Anay, that was you. So it's a great speech. I mean, it's 15 minutes, but it's very, very much worth the watch. So why should you focus on being deliberate? I love this quote of Living by Design. You're not just kind of a sucker or vulnerable to what the rest of the world is doing. You're actually trying to live to a bit of purpose. To deal with ADD bosses. So one of the big decisions we took last year was that Anay would take over kind of day-to-day supervision of people, because if it was up to me, I would put us off on like a million different projects. We're still working on the mechanics of it, but basically it does make a difference. And I think I've spoken to a few people who have exactly this problem, is that their bosses go off in all sorts of different directions, and you become the pawn who's got to go and run around and make all these things happen without necessarily focusing on yourself. Giving you a sense of purpose and achievement. So I think it's always cool when you've actually set out to do something and you achieve and you actually achieve things. Avoiding procrastination. So for those who ever have to work with me on content related things, I often procrastinate right up until the last minute, just because I find everything else is far more interesting. And once I've actually got it out the way, I feel better about myself, but I am good at procrastinating. And then ultimately building momentum. I think it is one of those things, momentum is one of the most powerful forces in the world if it's working in your favor, but you've got to build a whole lot of deliberate steps to be able to build that momentum. So just practical steps to be more deliberate. I know this is kind of counterintuitive, and most companies don't normally encourage this, but we've always said that you needed to prioritize yourselves. When you wake up in the morning, I don't think you should be waking up to see what you can do for the benefit of me or the company or whatever it is. You've got to prioritize your own professional development, and your professional development or personal development will ultimately drag us along, because it means that you are building out yourselves into being the best version of yourself that you can be. Differentiate between tasks and goals. When we started this year, I kind of gave everybody a whole lot of tasks, hoping that it would drive them to do certain goals. And Anna and I were actually chatting, and for her, she wants to know what the goals are rather than the tasks. And I think maybe it's also a function of experience or being a little bit older. But some people really want all the tasks, but not necessarily understanding the alignment with the goals. Whereas some people really say, kind of the goal, if you tell me what the goal is, I will come up with the tasks that need to be done to do it. This is something I still think we can do better. Do we as a team know what we're collectively required to achieve each month? I think we run around and we do a lot of things, but we don't necessarily align with what it is that we need to achieve each month. So definitely something that we need to work on there. If we can't measure it, we can't manage it. I think everyone's heard this saying before. Idea is definitely to see if we can measure it. Does the advertising work? Does the PR efforts work? Reporting, sales efforts, etc., etc. And then lastly, invest in relationships. I think for most of you, you're a relatively young team. We were talking, in fact, about engaging with journalists. And, we've got to build those relationships, because it's a core part of our work, but it doesn't help if we just keep bombing stuff off to complete strangers who don't understand what it is we're doing. So I think investing in relationships is a big part of being deliberate. And that is my 2 presentations. Any thoughts, comments, complaints, or criticism? Deadly silence.
I think for me, what really stood out, which is kind of like an indirect thing, but and you said, Mark, you and Ane had a conversation, and they said, what is the task, but what is the goal? What are we trying to achieve? And sometimes, for myself, I know I am a pro list maker. Like, what is the list? What do I need to get done? Tick it off one thing at a time. And I actually kind of prefer that sort of perspective of looking at it and going, not like looking at every little task that I need to just get done, rather looking at it and saying, what is the goal I'm trying to achieve by getting this done? It's a little bit, more motivating. It's a kind of cool perspective to look at your task list or your to-do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think that is the thing is, a goal gets achieved by doing a whole lot of little tasks. I think sometimes what came out of that discussion Nay and I had was that the task list just gets longer and longer, and and then you kind of are busy, but you're not necessarily working to what you're actually looking to achieve. And then, I mean, just, it might be said a little bit tongue in cheek, but being intentional about sticking to gym, one of the things is it's really hard to train your body to actually look after it, to go to gym. So we've started every Sunday morning, and I think we've done it now 5 weeks in a row. You do that walk around Saints. And once your brain is kind of adjusted to the idea that you're going to do the 10,000 steps or whatever, it becomes very easy to put together. but the upfront, you find it very difficult to kind of convince yourself that this is, this is actually a good idea. And it takes a couple of times. Once the habit is there, it becomes much, much easier. Anybody else got any comments?
It's also a mindset thing. Like I never thought about it like that, but someone told me one day that we always think that we have to go and do something extreme, like you have to go to Saints to do the walk. But what about if every morning you get up, or every evening before you go to bed, you literally do 5 burpees? If you haven't done anything for so long, like that's already going to make a difference. So yeah, don't necessarily go and look for the big things, but start small.
Yeah, and I think you become encouraged or discouraged very quickly if you don't achieve little baby steps. But if you start to do, if you land a win and you do your first 10 push-ups, if you've got no upper body strength and you try and do 10 push-ups and maybe you set yourself a goal of 50 push-ups and you can't do the first 10, you're kind of thinking, well, I'm not ever going to get started. But if you can do 10, and then the next day it becomes 10 plus 2 or 10 plus 5, those little things start to add up over time. Cool. Well, hopefully that has kept you entertained for half an hour. We are on half an hour on the dot. Unless there are any other questions or comments, I'm going to end the session. I'll just give everybody a moment just to respond. Cool. Thank you, everybody. So I hope we all have a good week. There's a lot of things we still need to wrap up. February is always a funny month because it's a shortened month. So, people always leave things to the last minute. So let's see if we can go and knock this off. And looking forward to chatting to you all again next week, Friday. We will share this on social media and on the YouTube channel again. So looking forward to chatting. Thanks, everybody. Cheers.
Happy Friday,
Bye.
everyone.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Bye.